Hi everyone, it's been a while since we last did a challenge on the second generation, at least the complete story, so I decided to rectify this oversight by answering a pretty clear question. Can you finish Pokémon Silver with only internal game trades? But before answering this question in a lengthy video, here are the rules we will impose in this challenge. In battles, we will only use Pokémon that do not belong to us, meaning those we received through internal game trades. Before the first internal trade, the goal is to complete the adventure as quickly as possible to start the challenge within a reasonable time frame. Items are not allowed in battles, as I find they make the run easier and somewhat detract from the challenge. Finally, the only Pokemon we can capture are those that will be traded during the game. The small exception here is that these Pokemon are allowed to learn HM moves to overcome obstacles in the game, but no other Pokemon can be captured additionally. So now, if you're ready, buckle up for this conquest of Johto. The adventure begins in Violet City, the third city in the game, where we'll perform the first trade. The first important element here is capturing a Bellsprout on the previous route. Once we have this Pokemon, we can go to the first house in the city to get our first Pokemon, Rocky, a male Onix. On paper, not too bad, especially given its stats. We can immediately head to the PC to release our starter, and the challenge can begin. Given our Pokemon's level, it seems obvious that some training is necessary. In the tall grass, we'll avoid certain Pokemon, particularly one we know well, as it was our first capture, Bellsprout. Indeed, one of Onix's major issues is its double weakness to two common types in the game. So common that these are the two types that Professor Elm offers as starters, water and grass. To make matters worse, Onix's defense is very good, but its special defense is really limited, and unfortunately, in this generation, these are still exclusively special types. In the meantime, we've already leveled Onix to level 7, and we will attempt the first gym to see how our Pokemon performs. The trade of this Pokemon at this stage of the adventure is not a coincidence. It counters Flying-type Pokemon perfectly along the way, and the two mandatory trainers are completely annihilated by our Pokemon. Then comes the gym leader, and the main problem in this battle is not the Pokemon, as they are quite similar to those of the previous trainers, but a particular move, Mudslap. It's super effective, as it's a solo-type move, but that's not the main issue, especially considering its sheer power. It's rather its secondary effect. Indeed, this move lowers accuracy, which is somewhat the offensive equivalent of Sand Attack. Since the opponent's Pidgey keeps spamming it, we can't land attacks anymore. The Sparrow becomes untouchable, and ultimately, we're almost knocked out. With some tactics, by using the move Tackle at the right moment, which will lower the opponent's defense, it's possible to defeat it. However, Albert's last Pokemon, its evolution, Pidgeotto level 9, also has Mudslap. Naturally being ridiculously favored, we can only watch defeat again and try our luck over and over, gaining a bit of experience here and there. But the issue is, and I hadn't really thought about it before, the higher our Pokemon's level, the harder the challenge becomes. Indeed, while traded Pokemon have the advantage of gaining much more experience at the end of battles, they level up much faster. If we don't have the proper badges, they become uncontrollable. Apparently, below level 10, all traded Pokemon obey us, as we haven't beaten the first gym yet, but alas, now that Rocky is level 11, he is completely incontrollable. It's quite frustrating, especially since the game tells us what he does instead. Either he doesn't obey, or he turns his back on the opponent's Pokemon, or he decides to use a completely random move. Once, I even saw him take a nap in the middle of the battle. No joke, my Pokemon fell asleep, instead of dealing with the Pidgeotto, which continued to prevent him from attacking with Mudslap. We almost returned to square one, as despite our higher level, we can no longer defeat Faulkner's first Pokemon. So it's time to go back to training, carefully selecting our opponents, as level 3 Bellsprouts are just stronger than us. Can we refund the trade, please? Fortunately, during a new attempt against the gym leader, our Pokemon defeats the Pidgeotto and levels up to 14 to learn Rock Throw, a super effective stab move that will finally allow us to attack properly. Well, victory isn't immediate, as Rocky still wants to wander around, but with 3 physical attacks and Rock Throw, even if he uses a random move, it's a bonus for us if it works. Our salvation comes during a match, when our accuracy is still quite low, but now we can almost one-shot the first Pidgeot, which we do first, with a Rock Throw, then another Rock Throw that lands, and we have 28 HP left to deal with the Pidgeotto. Of course, we don't attack every turn, that's kind of the story of our life right now, but with only 4 HP remaining, we manage a first Rock Throw, which sends the Pidgeotto's HP into the red. It attacks us again, but we have 1 HP left. And finally, our last attack lands. We've finally beaten the first gym leader. It was a tough fight, but at least the matter is settled now. We receive a nice reward, which was Mudslap this time, which could be an interesting stab move for Rocky, but we'll keep it in his TM case, unless we get stuck again. So we head down towards the cave in the south, and the first thing to note is that the first badge does not give us control over traded Pokemon. Rocky is still acting on his own, and we'll need to wait for Bugsy to be able to control him again, so it's crucial to avoid all the Wooper on our path if we don't want to restart at the last Pokemon Center we visited. However, one of the hikers in the cave will give us trouble, since he also has an Onix, so we're in for our first serious battle, which we managed to win despite everything. We eventually reach Azalea Town after much maneuvering to avoid trainers who turn their gaze, and after contacting Kurt, we don't immediately confront Team Rocket for a simple and good reason. It's nighttime, and at night in the Alex Forest, there are Oddish. We'll catch one, but we won't use it in battle. You understand? It's a Pokemon we can trade later, but if I capture it now, it's because I'm afraid that when I return to the Alex Forest, it will be daylight, as the challenge will take time, and once Team Rocket is gone, Silver blocks the path, and it's quite difficult to defeat. In any case, the future in Slowpoke Well doesn't pose too many problems, and Team Rocket evacuates the city, giving us access to the second gym of the game. And if I long thought Rocky was a Pokemon available to curious trainers who would have agreed to trade so he could breeze through the adventure, the fact that we can't rely on him in important battles makes me question this idea. Anyway, we face Bugsy, and we still have the type advantage. However, our rock throws need to hit, and when they do, they can one-shot the first Metapod. However, the second Pokemon, Kakuna, manages to poison us, and since we don't attack often, we only have 1 HP against the Sither, and our first battle is ruined again. Fortunately, in our second attempt, Metapod doesn't deal damage, and Bugsy chooses to send out Scyther directly, which has a double weakness to our rock-type attack. And this time, Rocky decides to attack, finishing off Scyther, and continuing without hesitation against Kakuna. For a surprise, it's quite a surprise. It seems like our Pokemon might have seen Bugsy's badge from far, as it now listens in all battles up to level 30, giving us a good margin to progress in the adventure. The next important battle is directly against Silver, who, as I mentioned earlier, waits for us before the Alex Forest. Technically, with our stab move, we're prepared to one-shot the first Ghastly, which is good, but Silver has stolen a starter from Professor Elm, Croconaw, which can hit us with a super effective attack. The duel against Giovanni's son is not necessarily guaranteed. After a few attempts, where Ghastly is once again one-shotted, Croconaw prefers to use Rage first, which doesn't hurt us much, and has enough turns to attack and finish it off. The final Pokemon is Zubat, which can't handle the Rock-type attack, and the access to Goldenrod City is cleared. The Oddish we caught earlier will help us cut the bush, and our trainer, accompanied by Rocky, can proceed north. We arrive in Goldenrod City, and the first destination after visiting the Pokemon Center is the shopping center. A new NPC will interest us. He says he collects Pokemon and is looking for a Drowsy in exchange for our Machop. Conveniently, there are Drowsies in the tall grass near the daycare, so we find one and capture it to obtain our second Pokemon. Thanks, Luke. Here's a Pokemon that will only be useful against the third gym leader, which we'll be visiting soon, after meeting Muscle, the Machop. He starts the battle against Whitney and already has fighting-type moves. Although Clefairy deals him quite a bit of damage, thanks to the gold berry given to him by his previous trainer, he can defeat what could have been Pokemon's mascot with an attack that, in the 6th generation, would have the opposite effect against him. However, we shouldn't push it too far, and Miltank finishes off Muscle, but we still have Rocky at level 25, and especially with a dual type that resists rollout, the most dangerous attack of Miltank. After a few exchanged blows, the cow is dealt with, and it's good. The battles are progressing a bit faster now. Passing through the park, we make sure to get TM Dig, not for Onix but for Machop. This will be useful for the next battle. If Sudowoodo doesn't like our Karate Chop, the next gym features Ghost-type Pokemon, which are immune to our moves. However, in this generation, Spectrum and Ghastly are often featured, and they're also Poison-type, so Dig is perfect for taking them down with our Machop, and we'll make good use of it before it learns the ability Levitate. We finally reach Mortimer, the Ecotech City's champion, and start the hostilities with Muscle. On the first turn, Ghastly immediately uses Curse, which curses our Pokemon, but we deal for half its health. Since we use Dig, we can't switch out our Pokemon, but upon returning to the field, Ghastly is knocked out. Spectrum is the next Pokemon, but unfortunately, it is faster and can put us to sleep. So we bring out Rocky, who gets hit by Nightshade on the switch, but he hits hard, and he can two-shot the first Spectrum with his Rock-type attack. The second one can knock it out, and we bring Muscle back, who is still asleep, which will be enough for the opposing Pokemon to take us down. We'll attempt this several more times, since it trains our Pokemon anyway, but we need to be careful not to level up too high, or our Pokemon will become unstable again, which isn't optimal when they have several moves that don't hit the opposing Pokemon at all. We return with Rocky at level 27, to whom we have finally taught TM Mudslap. It's super effective despite its low power, and the first Ghastly kills itself. We then face the first cursed Spectrum. We annoy it with a Mudslap first, then follow up with Rock Throw, which is much more powerful, and while we're left with only 9 HP, it uses Mean Look. Good thing we weren't planning on escaping, so we can finish it off before facing another Spectrum, which will also weaken with Mudslap. This leaves the field open for Muscle, who with his first dig can defeat the Spectrum to have a duel against the Gengar. Since it doesn't manage to hypnotize us, which is common in these generations, as NPC Pokemon have a 25% chance of missing their status move, in addition to the usual probabilities, we finish it off with Dig. Now we have 4 badges, and a brand new Machoka, ready to go take on the Kimono Girls. To top it off, Pokemon up to level 50 will obey the trainer, which gives us a bit more leeway compared to the beginning of the game. Let's head to Olivine City now, where Jasmine asks us to fetch a medicine from Keenwood City. Here, we need to catch a new Pokemon since our current team members can't learn Surf. One of the sailors in town offers us a Voltorb in exchange for a Krabby, and while we won't accept this trade directly, since the Pokeball can't surf, we can still visit a second sailor who will give us the Super Rod. After a bit of fishing, we encounter a Krabby, which will kindly take us to Tianwood City. This is actually the perfect HM user, since it can also learn Strength, which is necessary to face Chuck, the 5th gym leader. Chuck greets us with a Primeape, and Rocky goes straight in with Mudslap to lower its accuracy, as Chuck has Pokemon with a type advantage against us. This helps us in the long run, since he won't favor fighting type moves, which we don't appreciate even with our good defense. Now we're at Poliwrath, and we don't have high expectations. When Surf comes into play, we'll use Mudslap to reduce its accuracy before the Poliwrath battles against Machoka. Luckily, it misses its Dynamic Punch, an attack with only 50% accuracy, so reducing its accuracy was a good move. Machoki can then 2H KO with its super effective moves. We now have 5 badges, which would allow us entry into Fort Boyard if there were keys, but since we're at Olivine Harbor, we head to the lighthouse to deliver the secret potion to Jasmine so we can challenge her directly. We also face Magnemite, which has a double weakness to Mudslap, making it a perfect match for Rocky's stab move. In 2 hits, the electric-type Pokemon is nearly knocked out. Next, we encounter Steelix, which has an impressive defense of 200, allowing it to tank hits well and occasionally land Iron Tails to deal with its pre-evolution. It's time for Muscle to step in and avenge his partner before facing Magnemite again, which will paralyze him. No matter, he can still be one-shot. With the western part of the map cleared, the lighthouse is in good shape, and it's time to head to Mahogany Town, still surfing on the Krabby. The situation is dire. There are problems at Lake Rage. Once the red Gyarados is dealt with, we proceed to confront Team Rocket's hideout with slightly over-leveled Pokemon. Our Pokemon are about 1.5 times higher in level than Team Rocket's in the simultaneous battle with Lance. Mahogany Town is freed from Team Rocket's control, and as usual, this grants us access to the gym we'll take on with 2 Pokemon. Onix leads the way, while Price sends out Seal, which theoretically has moves to deal with Rocket. However, 3 attacks are enough to KO Rocket, while Seal's 2 Ice-type moves barely affect the Snake. Against Piloswine, it's a bit tougher, so we'll lower its accuracy before it finishes us off with Blizzard. It doesn't matter though, since we have a type advantage Pokemon. It is the 3rd consecutive gym like that, and Vital Throw one-shots Piloswine. Our Pokemon reaches level 40, its stats improve, and the evolution doesn't change much. Price awards us the Glacier Badge. Johto is almost finished, but as we exit the gym, Professor Elm calls us. Since we're not using Pokemon with Fly, it takes a bit longer to get there, but the advantage is that we'll be there for a good while. This is because there are numerous Team Rocket grunts that we can't really avoid, and honestly, they're not the real issue. It's actually Silver that we face in the basement. He starts the battle with Golbat, which Rocky can quickly handle before facing the Feraligatr. It's clear this Pokemon is a bit stronger, as it withstands our Rock Throw remarkably well, so it's time to remove Onix, who is mortally afraid of the attacks of the Crocodile, allowing Muscle to throw everything into defeating the opponent's starter. To retaliate, Silver sends out his Haunter, but we kept the TM Dig, which can one-shot the Pokemon. Sneasel is then called out, but it doesn't resist fighting attacks well, and we lost the one-shot, before facing a new Magnemite, which we can take down with Dig. It's good, we haven't lost any major battles recently, and we can take down opponents on the first try. However, I completely forgot about the puzzle in the underground area. You need to activate and deactivate the switches to pass to the bottom and right side of the map. I thought about it, honestly, for far too long, considering I solved it when I was 6 years old. For those who come back here someday, it's very simple. First deactivate the 3rd switch, then the 2nd, then the 1st, and the path is clear. The Executive Rocket of the Radio Tower has Pokemon that don't like Muscle's attacks, which levels up quite a bit thanks to the bonus from traded Pokemon. And Goldenrod City is now calm. In fact, this is the last time we see Team Rocket in an organized group, so we can move on to the serious stuff. With the Blackthorn City side, there are no significant events in the Ice Cave, so we head straight to the gym where Claire is. She gives us a bit of a scare right at the start of the match. Naturally, we start with Onix, and she has a Dragonair. However, Dragonair attacks with Surf and immediately uses it to one-shot our first Pokemon. We only have Muscle left to take on 4 Pokemon, but Cross Chop can one-shot the first Dragonair. There are still 2 left, which means if he doesn't miss his attack, we can face Kingdra directly. Unfortunately, Kingdra is faster and makes us lose accuracy. Here, we miss an attack, which was expected, but fortunately, we don't lose any health, and when our attack lands, it's critical, allowing us to win the battle. I'm not sure if it's a one-shot anyway, but the point now is that we have access to the cave behind the gym called the Dragon's Den. That's where we'll get the 8th badge, especially by using Whirlpool with the move we taught Krabby. Also, in this place, there's a Pokemon that will interest us, Dratini. We'll capture one, which will allow us to teach it new TMs, including Surf, so we can finally return to a house in Olivine City and trade Krabby. We'll trade later Dratini. We keep it as a HM slave, but now we finally have 3 Pokemon and an interesting coverage since our Voltorb is super effective against water and flying types. We head to Kanto, where Dratini crosses the waterfall to reach Victory Road, and here, we won't hesitate to train Volti to get it ready for the league. It's at level 27 when Silver encounters us, which is not bad compared to his Sneasel, which can still one-shot our Pokemon. It doesn't matter. You saw the previous fight against Silver, and it's clear he's not much of a threat to our team, with Muscle even managing to defeat his entire team. The league is finally within our reach, and it's time to test ourselves. Can we make it with this team of 3 Pokemon? I'll let you place your bets in the comments while we head towards Will. Here we go. We start the battle with Volti because he has a Xatu, and we know this type will cause more or less of a problem for our team, even though we have higher levels. Muscle re-enters the battle since we want to see Volti gain XP, but unfortunately, he gets 2 HKO'd by Xatu, and Rocky has to take revenge. The problem is that the Cursed Bird can confuse us, making the Rock Snake ineffective, and the battle is already lost. The first attempt wasn't optimal, but we see that the gap between the league and gym leaders is quite high, especially when starting with this type. Without Dark Pokemon, we come back with renewed strength, mainly by training Volti, so he evolves, and we teach him a useful casino move, Thunderbolt, since he doesn't learn electric moves naturally, and Will has 3 Pokemon weak to these attacks. Ready to try again, and Volti is now our lead. At level 42, he can one-shot Xatu if Thunderbolt hits. Against Jinx, since it uses Psychic, it's crucial to first set up Light Screen, so we don't one-shot or otherwise, and it will try to put us to sleep successfully. This leaves us at the mercy of Will's Pokemon's psychic attacks, and we really need to protect our Electrode if we want a chance of success. Muscle still manages to get rid of Liputu, but against Executor, we must prefer Seismic Toss, since it also uses screens to increase its defense. In 3 moves, the matter is settled, and Slowbro enters the fray. It can finish off our fighting Pokemon, but at this point, Rocky remains and can throw 2 rock throws. Apparently, Slowbro doesn't have any high-level attacks. Okay, its Psychic does hurt a lot, but we hold on and can have a final showdown against Xatu, the level 42 one, which we managed to 2-shot, while it leaves us with 8 HP. A lot of luck in this attempt, but we played very poorly at the start of the match, possibly sacrificing our Electrode too quickly. Anyway, the battle is won, and we can now face an old Kanto champion, Koga, and see where we stand with our team. And honestly, it's going well. We just need to remember to heal the team, which wasn't done in the first fight, a huge mistake, and it made things tougher since I had to battle Will a second time after spending a long time finding a technique to defeat him. It doesn't matter. With Electrode, it goes by pretty quickly, and this time, it's his Thunderbolt that does the damage, which is great because it means he's gaining levels. Now we face Koga again, who is known for using Ariados as his lead, known as Megalos in French, and our Rock Throw hits the mark. His second Pokemon is Fortress, so we'll call back Rocky for Muscle, who will show the power of his attacks by one-shotting the Bug-type Pokemon. Koga then sends out his third consecutive Bug-type Pokemon, which is also Poison-type, and Muscle will have fun with Dig, which one-shots the inverse evolved form of Metapod. At this point, the Poison-type champion sends out Crobat, and of course, he's quite good against matchup, so Rocky is sent in to deal damage. We're poisoned, but when the Rock Throw lands, we realize it will be a 2-shot, so the exchange won't be complicated unless Koga constantly heals his Pokemon. He's quite a good player, I must admit, and the bat is taken out of commission, so we can face the Muck, which Muscle will tackle with Dig, and thanks to previous good work, the team takes down the ultimate Poison-type Pokemon. Perfect, Koga is defeated. We can move forward in the league, facing a member whose type we have already fought. Among the Johto champions, Bruno. He starts with Hitmontop, and we had prepared for this with Muscle, who will attempt a cross-chop right away, but unfortunately, the attack misses, leaving Hitmontop alive, and it launches a Dig, which we'll try to counter with our own Dig, but once again, the spinning Pokemon dodges our attack, though at least, in the next turn, both Pokemon are on the field. And this time, Muscle doesn't miss his cross-chop. The first Pokemon of Bruno is defeated. Bruno then sends out Hitmonlee, and without delay, we also hit him with cross-chop, which one-shots him, and Hitmonchan makes his appearance. We're out of PP for cross-chop. It had to happen. I avoid to heal the PP too early when doing the league, because Ether and Elixir can't be bought, so it's better to use them later. In any case, Dig is enough to handle it. And now we're up against our evolution, Machamp. There are not many options, and since Dig isn't very powerful by default, we'll prioritize using Seismic Toss, which does the job honestly. Machamp is within range when our own Pokemon is knocked out, and if Bruno hadn't healed his Pokemon, Volti could have dealt with it easily. Unfortunately, it can't finish it off, and Rocky has to complete the job before facing its counterpart. The two Rock Serpents exchange ground attacks, and it's clear that Rocky has been well trained, as with his Mud Slap attack, he deals the same damage as the opposing Onix, even though it uses Earthquake, a move 5 times more powerful. As a result, our opponent misses his attack, and Rocky wins yet another Onix duel. Bruno opens the doors to the next room, and we can be pleased with having won this fight without too much difficulty. The fourth Elite Four member is Karen, who sends out an Umbreon, which we have a type advantage against with Muscle. Unfortunately, we miss our first cross chop, so we take a Sand attack, but on the next turn, the Dark-type Pokemon is KO. Since Karen brings out Vileplume, we'll switch Pokemon to get optimal accuracy and send out Volti, who will bombard the poisoned flower with Thunderbolts. Its previous trainer, a sailor from Olivine City, had given it a berry to prevent paralysis, so it's using it during the fight, and thanks to its electric attack, the opposing Victreebel gets paralyzed with about a 30% chance per attack. Volti can then face Gengar, but without its stab, as it has no PP left. It doesn't matter, it still has Rollout, which isn't very good with its attack, but every turn, the damage increases, and as Gengar curses us, it loses half its HP. Volti manages to finish off Gengar, which allows him to glimpse Houndoom, who will settle the score with Pursuit. It was trapped no matter what happened. Rocky is the Pokemon suited for this situation, and with Rock Throw, we know he can take down Houndoom, but it will use Roar to bring Muscle back into the fight, who takes the Flamethrower and then finishes off the Demon Pokemon with Cross Chop. That's it. There's only one Pokemon left, Murkrow, which even though it's neutral to matchup's fighting moves, doesn't stand a chance against our Pokemon, which is way too powerful. Victory is in the bag, all the Elite Four members are defeated, and it's time to head to the penultimate room of this league, where the champion awaits with a multitude of Flying-type Pokemon. And indeed, since he starts the fight with Gyarados, starting with Volti, is totally appropriate, and its Thunder hits the mark, one-shotting the Pokemon. Lance then sends out his first Dragonite, and when his Pokemon fly, Rocky isn't a bad choice. With his Stab Rock Throw, he at least has a super effective move. Dragonite still gets its HP into the orange zone. Dragon-type moves are special in this generation, but Rocky manages to take down the first Dragon Pokemon, only to face what is probably its cousin. Each Dragonite has a different move, and naturally Lance sends out the one with the move Blizzard, which finishes off Onix, who can now return to its Pokeball. That's enough. We'll call on Muscle, who can only effectively hit with Seismic Toss, which will evidently be a fixed damage move, and since it handles Hyper Beam well, Dragonite is KO. Aerodactyl is the next Pokemon, and unfortunately, it has a Stab Flying move with quite remarkable power, which hits Muscle hard, who in 2 hits could be sent back to its Pokeball. We only have Volti left, who is still faster than Aerodactyl, and can finish it off with Thunder. 4 Pokemon have fallen, but there's still the level 50 Dragonite, which is neutral to electric attacks. Unfortunately, with both attacks, it's not paralyzed, so it can use the move Outrage, which takes out our Pokeball, and we'll need to restart the fight with a better strategy if possible. The start of the battle isn't going to change much. Volti is still perfect for the opening. As with Thunderbolt, we don't need to worry about the Gyarados. Lance once again calls for Dragonite, and similarly, Rocky makes its entrance and starts sending Rock Throw, hoping to lose as few HP as possible. Unfortunately, it's already at 24 HP when the second Dragonite comes in, but this time, we'll try to preserve it by sending in Muscle, which can handle Blizzard very well. We know that with Seismic Toss, it takes 3 hits to take down Dragonite. Fortunately, when the second Hyper Beam goes off, Muscle survives with 3 HP, and it can finish off the Dragon Pokemon before welcoming Aerodactyl, which is naturally faster, and takes down the Fighting-type Pokemon. Volti, just to remind you, and its Thunder are very effective. It can one-shot the Terra, thus it faces a level 50 Dragonite, where it will play a bit more strategically. Light Screen will eliminate its special attacks, thinking here of its Dragon attacks, so Outrage is a bit weaker. Meanwhile, we can keep hitting it with Thunder, and if by bad luck the attack misses once, it should still be enough to take down Lance's signature Pokemon before facing Charizard, the ultimate Pokemon. We won't really take any risks. We know Onix is slower, and we've left Explosion on Electrode to ensure victory, since we still have 1 Pokemon left when Charizard's Flame goes out. It was a league victory, and I'm quite proud of it. In the end, Will was the real threat to this team, so we get congratulations from Professor Oak, a journalist, and Lance, who takes us to the back room to validate the fame of Electrode, Onix, and Machamp. However, in these games, the first league isn't really the end of the adventure, since the post-game offers an entire region to revisit. Kanto, and of course, potentially more Pokemon to trade. We get the boat pass, and on foot, we traverse the Johto region to return to the port and set sail to Vermilion City. We tackle the puzzle on the boat with the best intentions, and once the little girl is found, we have arrived. To be honest, the battles in Kanto aren't the most thrilling, so we'll only cover those that might pose a problem. But first, we'll try to build a decent team. So, the first step is to resolve the issues we see upon arriving in Kanto. The power plant is down, a lone Team Rocket member is causing trouble near Cerulean City, Misty is hanging out with a guy at Cape Azure instead of guarding her gym, the Copycat has lost her Pokédoll, and another Snorlax is blocking access to the Diglett Cave. Once these are resolved, we head east of Fuchsia City, a route I rarely use, to be honest. The cycling road is much more practical, as there's a lady looking for a Chansey in the tall grass. Here we are in the tall grass where the lady is. We start searching for this Pokemon for a good while, although she's still hanging around. And after a few minutes, what a joy, we find the Pokemon itself. We're not taking any risks. We'll capture it with the Master Ball. It's probably one of the rarest Pokemon in the game. We then head back to Kim, who says goodbye to her Patera and receives our Chansey. With this, we can use Fly. Fly. Oops, we missed something in Johto. Well, the magnet train works now, so we'll return to our original region, cross it quickly, take to the sea with Dratini, and talk to the lady in front of the Tianwood Gym in the far west of the game to get Fly. Once that's done, Aero can quickly return to Goldenrod City, and our exploration of Kanto continues. First, a mandatory stop at Blackthorn to evolve Dratini into Dragonair. Female, mind you, it was necessary to obtain a Rhyhorn. Unfortunately, we already have a Rock and Ground Pokemon, which makes it a bit redundant in the team, but it can learn Surf, which is useful for reaching the Seafoam Islands and winning Blaine's badge. For the last trade, and I'm not sure if you still remember, we had captured a Oddish in the Ilex Forest to get past the tree, but the idea is that it has now become in Gloom, and in Pewter City, the town of the first gym in Pokemon Blue and Red, there's a trainer in the Pokemon Center who is willing to trade us a Rapidash if we exchange our Orteed. We accept Amity's deal, and now we have a Fire-type Pokemon to face the gym leaders. We finally have 6 Pokemon, and honestly, Kanto is perfect for training them, with a special thought for Janine, who loses a good portion of her Pokemon thanks to our recent acquisitions. All this makes me want to do challenges in the Kanto region in the second generation games, starting from scratch, of course. Let me know what you think. I'm always looking for interesting challenges to tackle. Ultimately, a trainer who causes us a bit of trouble is Blue, the 8th gym leader, who always arrives at the battle with a Pidgeot. We won't be able to handle Rocky in the second round. The goal here is to chip away at our Rapidash a bit. When it lands its Rock Slide, it does quite a bit of damage to Pidgeot. It's a far cry from the days when Onix struggled against a low-level Pidgey in the first gym. Pidgeot knocks us out, so we call on Volti, our flipped Pokeball, but since we're feeling playful, we'll use the same tactic as Whitney and hammer the Pokemon with Rollout. This is enough to take Pidgeot down, but unfortunately, we're stuck in this attack, and the Pokemon Blue chooses next is Raiden, which can wall us and one-shot us with its moves. We've already lost a good Pokemon. It doesn't matter. We call on Mr. Muscle, who is supposed to land his Cross Chop, and when he does, the Rock-type Pokemon can't stand up to him. Blue responds by sending out Alakazam. We sense that we're not going to make it against this Psychic-type Pokemon, so we sacrifice Speedy, the Ponyta, to safely bring in Rocky. Rocky survives Psychic, but it's not enough to do significant damage to Alakazam, so we need to quickly go back into the bag and hope for a miracle. Unfortunately, it doesn't come soon, and our first attempt against Blue is a failure. Our 3 useful Pokemon must stay alive at all costs, so we need to think carefully to approach the battle optimally. The solution is to have a serious match, with Rocky as our lead, and he directly attacks Pidgeot with Rock Throw. In 3 hits, the bird falls, and this time Blue sends out Executor. We call on Aero, our Aerodactyl, since it has a decent stab flying move, and can deal some chip damage to Executor, while avoiding its Solar Beam, as it's airborne every other turn. Unfortunately, after a while, Blue heals Executor, and everything is reset. Playing cleverly, Aerodactyl level 31 manages to somewhat handle Executor. Level 58, it's a small feat, but necessary for the rest of the fight, knowing that Psychic-type Pokemon are quite harmful to our team. Unfortunately, Executor is healed again, we don't hit hard enough, and it will take at least 10 PP of Fly to take down the Palm Tree. Rhydon is called in for revenge, and with 1 hit, it enjoys itself. Rock Slide finishes off Aerodactyl, and we will make the most of our Pokemon's potential by sending in Riri and its Surf Attack. Unfortunately, we're still one shot by Blue's Pokemon, but it was worth trying for some damage, especially since Mr. Muscle comes back, and with Cross Chop, he doesn't one-shot Rhydon, and thus takes a Fury attack before facing Alakazam for another duel. We urgently dodge by sending Speedy, who will be a new sacrifice, but allows us to bring Volty back to the field. Like in the fight against Will, Volty will use Light Screen to reduce special attacks damage. Then, it's time for Thunder Spam, and it works quite well, as we get a critical hit against one of the most dangerous Pokemon, Alakazam, which then faints. It's time for Blue to send out Arcanine, and we'll still attempt to attack it with our Pokeball. Once again, we rely on luck, as Thunderbolt paralyzes it. Excellent work from Volty, who we recall because Onix is a natural enemy of Arcanine, but the dog uses Roar. Volty gets the privilege of finishing off the dog. It even faces off against Blue's final Pokemon, Gyarados, and unfortunately misses Thunder, so Gyarados, being a good lad, uses Rain Dance to prevent this from happening again. The Water-type Pokemon is then fried, and Blue raises the white flag. We've defeated him, he acknowledges our superiority, and awards us the badge. That makes 16 now, and as you might guess, with this collection, we only have one thing left to do: head to the Mount Silver. Without a Pokemon with Flash, it's not easy, but it's 2024, the internet has become widespread, so we can find detailed maps. We reach the summit, and the ultimate duel can begin, as the lead of Red is Pikachu. Onix is perfectly suited for the job, and with Mud Slap, it can handle the starter while decreasing its accuracy. There's a faster way to eliminate it, but we haven't yet gotten the Earthquake TM, just in case Mud Slap is still useful. The next Pokemon is Espeon, coming to avenge Pikachu, so we'll sacrifice Speedy once again to bring Volty to the field, and once again use Light Screen to double our special defense. Unfortunately, with Psychic, we get a defense drop, which ensures that Espeon can two-shot us, so we'll opt for an explosion to ensure the Psychic Pokemon doesn't cause more damage. Espeon is KO'd, and Red sends out Charizard. As Mr. Muscle appears on our side, we call Riri the slightly weakened Rhyhorn, and it sends Surf Attacks, which do very little damage to the opponent due to the level difference. Our Pokemon is two-shot, and we call Rocky back because he has a double effective move, but again, despite his double resistance, his special defense is too weak to withstand the fire attacks of Charizard. However, it reduces its HP to orange, and Mr. Muscle can then intervene with Rock Slide, but he doesn't finish off Charizard, and Charizard sends a devastating Flamethrower, causing more than 140 HP damage to our Pokemon. Only Aerodactyl remains, and with half the levels, it's a lost cause. Red defeats us in the first attempt, and we can even say we're quite far from winning. It's okay, we knew we needed to train, but I wanted to see the level of difficulty, and it's clear that the battle is quite tough with only 3 viable Pokemon, which are still at least 20 levels below. We still have a few TMs we can learn before retrying with a more solid team. Of course, if we lead off each time with Onix, and it will be a one-shot on Pikachu, who is completely walled by ground-type Pokemon. Again, Red send a second Pokemon, as known as Espeon, so we need to be clever. The Pokemon we choose is Volty, so it can set up a light screen to make things easier for our next Pokemon. Electrode dies in the battle, but Speedy can come in its place, and now can endure Psychic and deal damage to Espeon. Aerodactyl is then tasked with pounding in the Evolution, but it's no use. Mentally is too powerful, and one of the only viable solutions is to blow up Volty to take it down, as no other Pokemon on the team can withstand its overpowering special attack. Riri is one shot, Mr. Muscle 2, and in the end, the team isn't good enough for this battle. When we sacrifice Volty against Espeon, we face Venusaur, who has super effective attacks against 2 of our Pokemon, while handling the fly attacks from Aerodactyl quite well. Thus it completely annihilates the rest of our team, especially since it can heal itself during battle, and our little stay in Mount Silver extends with an additional XP session. The gap is quite significant between Red and Blue, the 2 final major trainers of the game, and that's a good thing. Red is considered the final boss of the game, and remains one of the best trainers across all Pokemon games to this day. So, we're coming back with Pokemon equivalent to his level to complete this challenge in a high-stakes battle. Pikachu vs Onix, episode 119, and with a level 71 Rocky. This time it's the Electric Mouse who gets the one shot. Espeon enters the field, one of the Pokemon that causes us the most trouble. We won't waste time and send out Riri, who is level 64, to sacrifice for the greater good. Riri takes a critical hit, which is one less hit we'll face from our other Pokemon, or at least we hope so. Volty can enter the field, set up a protection screen, and Espeon does the same. The best trainers recognize each other here, and then Thunder can two-shot the Evolution. It was about time. Snorlax enters the field, and normally we have a Pokemon that can handle it, named Muscle. Muscle has a complete type advantage, but the issue is that Snorlax is considered the best Pokemon of this generation from a strategic perspective, so it's going to hit hard. Fortunately, in 2 hits, the lazy Pokemon is sent back into its Pokeball. Muscle has fulfilled its contract and can return to its Pokeball. When Charizard comes in, Rocky takes its first Flamethrower, and unfortunately, it seems to be a 2-shot, but at level 71, Rocky is faster and brings the HP of the most popular Pokemon in the franchise, according to numerous polls, into the KO range. Our first Pokemon in this challenge then falls. It's up to Volty to take revenge with a hidden power attack that we taught it because, by sheer chance, it is of the right type. Next is Venusaur, and this time we kept our fire Pokemon. It wasn't sacrificed like livestock. It enters the battle and starts a barrage with Explosion, which seems to be a 2-shot. Once the 2 attacks are down, only 1 Pokemon remains, and it's Blastoise, which can be a problem for us. We will first send Machoke, hoping to land a hit, but it immediately takes a Surf attack, and on the next turn, being weak, it is finished off by the turtle. We are left with only 3 Pokemons. We won't give up and send Electrode. Like with Lance, we'll first use Explosion to ensure victory, but unfortunately, here, the problem is that our Pokemon explodes without securing the win. Blastoise still has some HP left, while our last 2 Pokemon are weak against its high-level attack. It's panic time, but we choose Speedy as the replacement Pokemon, mainly because it is faster, and with Takedown, it can finish the battle and the challenge. We've now beaten Pokemon Silver, with Pokemon obtained solely through trades. None were captured by our trainer. Honestly, it was a bit of a pleasure to test some unique Pokemon that aren't usually seen in adventures, and who, in the end, are quite good. The main challenge issue was the type balance, as we were generally wary of high-level types. Thankfully, Electrode was there, and especially Psychic types, which gave us a lot of trouble. The beginning of the challenge was quite difficult with Onyx not listening because we didn't yet have a badge, which was quite refreshing, despite what one might say. Once we reached the mid-game, thanks to the extra bonus points, our Pokemon became quite powerful, and we were able to master all the local gym leaders, especially a quest to complete the team without being blocked by the HM slaves. As often, Red presents a major difficulty, and only with training can we overcome it, especially given his well-balanced team. I hope you enjoyed this somewhat original challenge and that it piqued your curiosity. Feel free to check out my latest challenges on the channel. There's a whole playlist on the homepage, and if you haven't already, I invite you to subscribe so you don't miss anything throughout the week. See you soon for new adventures. Au revoir.